Hey, y'all, and welcome to the monthly Lowcountry Book Club book discussion with two Southern Susans. Hello.
Hey, everybody.
And this month, of course, we'll be chatting with Jen DeLuca about her book, and this is Haunted Ever After. And I think everyone who watches this video, I hope you have read the book already because there will be spoilers, as is our custom. We want to talk about the book with the author after we've read it. So that's what we're going to do. So if you haven't read it, go ahead and turn this off, and then you can turn it back on.
And then read it, turn it back on after you've read
and then watch it.
Yeah,
because we're going to talk to the author about the book. Oh, okay. And here we go. We have some iced tea. Now, did you put bourbon in
that? She's kidding.
Hope. This is our dear co-host today is Hope, and she's bringing us iced tea with no bourbon. There's no hope in our iced tea.
But we've got the fireplace on behind us. It's 28 degrees outside.
It is so cold here, and so yes, we have the fireplace on, and we are back at the Piedmont Club, which is our favorite place for lunch, and Hope has just brought us some of these wonderful crackers that we love.
They are divine.
We're going to order lunch, and we're going to put together our questions for Jen, and then she's going to join us in a little bit and tell us all the things we want to know.
Everything we ever wanted to know about things haunted.
Yes. All right. We'll talk to you in a little bit. Okay. Welcome, Jen DeLuca, to the Lowcountry Book Club. You're here today with Susan and me to talk about, of course, Haunted Ever After, which we both read and thoroughly enjoyed. And we have all kinds of questions for you. And then if there's anything else you want to tell us, we'll leave time for that too, because we're interested in anything that you want to share with us today.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And we have questions from some of the members of the book club. And I thought I'm going to just start out with a couple of those and then maybe spin off of it.
Let me just tell her before we start that everyone who watches this video, we've already cautioned them, they need to have already read the book. So there can be spoilers. We're not worried about spoilers because this is the book of the month, and by this point, anyone who watches this video should have read the book, and they know to not watch it until after they finish reading.
And if they didn't at this point, it's on them. So
yeah, we tell them wait and to watch this after you've read the book if you haven't.
Okay. Absolutely, yeah.
So Susan has the first question.
This comes from Melissa, who asked this question. She knows Boneyard Key is not a real place, but she is interested to know if you based it on a real place in Florida.
Very much so. Boneyard Key kind of shares its DNA geographically very much with Cedar Key, Florida, which is it's not part of the South Florida Keys. It's kind of up north, almost near the Big Bend area on the Gulf Coast. It's this tiny little town, and it's a really fun. I used to live in Central Florida, and it was a really fun place to go, like for a weekend or even a day trip. And it's very much got that. Sort of just on the water vibe. It's got that island that's just off the coast where the original settlement was with an old cemetery. So as soon as I saw that, I was like, that's got to go in a book someday. And this was the perfect place to do it. So I kind of took Cedar Key, but Cedar Key doesn't really have like that sandy beach aesthetic to it. It's very much kind of a rocky shoreline. So then I kind of took other places that I love in Florida, like St. Augustine. And it's St. Augustine Beach is a gorgeous place. And so I kind of transposed little bits and pieces of other places of Florida that I love and made it all into one thing. So yeah, it's Cedar Key, it's St. Augustine. There's a little bit of Mount Dora, Florida, where I used to live, which is just northwest of Orlando, which is a very touristy little arts and craftsy kind of town. There's hints of Casadega, which is actually mentioned by name in the book, which is a spiritualist psychic community in Central Florida as well. Okay. So yeah, I took basically all my favorite places and put them in a blender.
And were there any haunted places on Cedar Key?
Not that I'm aware of. I kind of just went with it. I haven't done a deep dive into whether or not there are actual ghosts in Cedar Key. But there might be. I wouldn't put it past them. It's a place where a lot of stuff has happened. They've been hit by a lot of hurricanes.
Yes.
fires and a lot of all kinds
Yeah.
of things.
A
And so
lot
I
of,
wouldn't be surprised.
Didn't John D. McDonald, were his books set on Cedar King,
I don't
the
know.
Travis McGee novels? I think they were.
I'll have to look that up.
I think they were. I might be wrong. It's been a while since I read those, but somewhere in Florida.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Well, then that has to lead me to ask, okay, so then have you personally, and that's another question from Pat on the Lowcountry Book Club, have you personally had any ghostly experiences?
Not as such. I was one of those kids that kind of messed around with the Ouija board and had a couple of experiences that I'm like, maybe I should stop messing around with the Ouija board. But nothing really like where I was like, oh, I'm seeing a ghost. I've gone on a lot of ghost tours and seen some things that maybe you can't explain away very easily. I spent a couple of weekends in Casadega getting psychic readings, and some of those have been incredibly spot on when they,
Oh,
when they have like, someone sort of like visiting like a family member or something. Um, that was extremely specific where I was like, this isn't because you know how sometimes like psychics can be sort of generic and it can just sort of fit any situation. There
yeah.
was some stuff
Yeah.
that was very specific that I was like, this, there's something to this.
Okay, now I've always sort of had the hankering to consult a psychic, so now you're sort of motivating me to think
So
maybe that would be spot on. I've always wanted to encounter a ghost too, and I never have because then that would tell me definitively. But
had and I don't know if this is and it's one of those things that it could be a gray area, but when a couple of different family members have passed, I've had dreams with them in it where it's very specifically about them visiting me and me telling them, like, catching them up on what's happened since they died. So that's a little, and it felt, when I woke up, felt very much like a visit, like I was like a goodbye. So I definitely feel like those things were
yeah.
legit.
So, okay, if you haven't actually, seen a ghost, what was the inspiration for writing about a ghostly situation like this?
I love ghost stories. I have loved ghost stories since I was a kid. I'm a Southern girl too. I was born in North Carolina, raised in Virginia, and I one of my earliest memories as far as reading books was the books of Nancy Roberts, who have wrote a lot of Carolina based, I think, ghost stories and books. And I remember one was called Ghosts of the Carolinas.
That's a
And then
great book.
I've read some other just different collections of stories of encounters that some of them seem a little like, yeah, maybe not, but there are some like just like the psychic readings that are so specific that I feel like there's got to be something there. So I definitely believe in ghosts, and I just, like I said, I love ghost stories. I'm not a horror person. I don't like blood coming out of the walls and to be spooked out and stuff like that, but I'm one of those people that, like, if I read a Stephen King book, like, I've got one eye closed and I'm flipping pages because I'm like, oh. But I like more fun, like, hauntings, like, like the Haunted Mansion. The TV show Ghosts on CBS is one of my favorite shows. Just ones that are more like lighthearted, where there's a ghost, but they're not out to get you. It's more
Right.
about communicating and maybe helping them move on if they need to, or maybe they want to help you with your life. And
Yeah.
I just love stories like that.
Right.
Now, one of the things that kind of intrigued me, I guess you'd say, is that, Elmer can talk to Nick via text, and
Mhm.
of course, Cassie can talk to Sarah via the words on the refrigerator. And that's, and when I started thinking about it, I don't know that I've ever really read a ghost story where a ghost directly communicated with a
Mhm.
with a human, a living human. So I thought that was interesting. But here's the thing: with that came the idea that Elmer could just like be there and eavesdrop when Cassie and Nick were together, and presumably Sarah could too. So
Mhm.
I don't know, talk about that a little bit.
Well, I tried to make it yeah, that's definitely a possibility. But they like there was a very specific point in the book where Sarah like goes upstairs and closes the door.
Right.
Like, yeah, she's still a ghost and she could come and eavesdrop on whatever she wants to, but she's making it clear, I'm leaving y'all alone.
Yes.
You know? So I tried
Yeah,
to do
well,
little
she
things
has
like
some
that.
Yes.
Elmer, on the other hand,
no.
Elmer could have been a little bit of a pervert. Yeah, he was like, "Don't stop on my account," you know. But he also made his presence known, so he didn't just, didn't just eavesdrop on it. But but yeah, I think that, I mean, he probably wouldn't have actually, but I think that he was a little more like fun about it, like, hey, y'all can keep on going, I don't care.
boy, yeah.
Filter. He was a lot of fun to write because he was just that old guy with no filter, and he was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Right. So overall, I think this book read to me like, I mean, romance. Would you agree with that? I mean, it's a I mean, it's not so much a mystery as it is, and I don't know why I had the impression in the beginning it was mystery, and that might be because of the ghost element. I was thinking mystery,
Sure.
but it's more romance, and actually fairly. I mean, it hits all the notes for a romance. In other words, you've got the two young lovers who have the something to work out, and then that the happily ever after or happily for now or whatever. But have the other books you've written been romances? Is that your genre?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I'm definitely a romance writer. My other series is set in the world of the Renaissance Festival, and those are all interconnected standalone romance novels. So then I believe they market it as a paranormal romance. And I wasn't, so I just wrote, it was a romance novel with ghosts in it. That was what I wrote. And I was like, they can call it whatever they want to call it. And it didn't even occur to me probably until like it was starting to come out and people were talking about it that I did kind of write a mystery in there. Like I didn't really intend to, but like I didn't say I'm writing a mystery. It just was what happened in the writing of the book.
Sort of a ghostly mystery. I mean, not really so much.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a mystery about the ghosts or involved in the ghosts.
Exactly.
So we had several members in the group who asked about the location, about Boneyard Key, and I think we've addressed that. And then we had several folks asking about the ghost experiences and if you'd had them, and we've addressed that. But talk to us a little bit about the characters. The not the ghosts, but your two main characters that involved in the romance, Cassie and Nick. Tell us about the inspiration for these characters and their situation involving the ghost, and if the characters came first or the ghost, I guess.
Well, I think the kind of the concept of the book came first as far as wanting to write a ghost story. And then I had a lot of different ideas for ghost stories. And so instead of just coming up with all these different, pitching all these different ideas to my agent until she said, stop sending me ghost stories, I just created this town where they could all take place theoretically if I wanted to keep writing ghost stories. So that was definitely Boneyard Key, and the idea of writing ghost stories was kind of the beginning of the whole idea. And then it was, you need to bring somebody into the town, kind of so you're learning about the town as she's learning about the town. That's an introduction kind of thing. So that was how I was figuring out who Cassie was, why she is moved, why she's coming to town, what's caused her to leave where she is. And then I started, on the other end of it, writing about Nick and figuring out who he is and why he stays where he is. He's very much, they're very similar people, and they're both very lonely in different ways. Yes. Where, Nick has, he has this town that he's very much a part of. His family's from there. He feels that connection because of, his great grandfather, I believe, is what I've started with. Was in this town originally. Right. So he feels that deep connection to the area. And he has all of these friends and all of that he's grown up with that are part of this town with him. And then Cassie is coming to town completely by herself, and she feels uprooted by her friend group. She's in her, her, did I make her early 30s? All of her friends have gotten married, they're having kids, and she's that single person still. So nobody's, they're not going out to happy hour like they used to.
Right.
Conversations in the group chat are about car seats and moms and mom's night out and stuff like that. And she's feeling more and more isolated from this group. So she's trying to figure out what her life.
Right.
So it was about, like I said, these two people are both very lonely in different ways, and then they kind of are able to be that missing piece in the other's life. Because Nick is lonely because he has all these people, but he's still alone. The woman that he loved didn't want to stay there; she wanted out.
Right.
But then Cassie, came to fall in love with the town the way that he does, and understand the town the way that he does. So they're very right for each other in that way.
Exactly.
So I love the coffee shop and the banana bread, and we had some comments about
yes,
the banana
Neil's
bread.
asked about the banana bread.
And I say I do a pretty good banana bread. It's actually my husband's recipe, but it has
okay.
I don't think it's got cinnamon in it. I think it's got bergamot in it.
Sounds pretty good.
Yeah, but the banana bread and so forth. But my favorite food element, something that I learned about from this book. And I have to tell you, I'm not sure whether to thank you or not for this, but I am now hooked on these Publix chicken tender subs. I've never had one of those before.
I haven't had one either.
They're delicious.
Oh, golly.
my
yeah.
gosh.
Better not to know.
We were driving down to the coast because I had a few book events last week, and we got there late our first night, which was a Sunday night. And so I said to Jim, why don't we just go by Publix and get a sub? I know what I want to try.
Oh, my gosh.
And so he said, well, just get a whole one and we'll split it. And we both loved it. And this is not a good thing because I'm not thinking that's not health food.
It's definitely not health food. No, ma'am. But oh my gosh, I live in Arizona right now. I lived in Florida for about 25 years. We left Florida during the pandemic because my husband got a job out here in Tucson, Arizona. And you can't get Publix. There's no Publix out here. So I went back to visit my dad who lives in Daytona, probably in 2023. So about 3 years since I'd been to Florida. And like literally he picked me up from the airport and I said, we're going to Publix. And I got a sub and we, went back to his house and I just about cried when I took the first bite. It's something that is very Florida, but then I guess Publix has since expanded to other parts of the South. But
oh, yeah.
It's still very, to me, it's a very Florida thing. And I've gotten a lot of messages from readers who are like, yup. It's just, you can't get it anywhere else. It doesn't have a Publix. It's just the way they do their chicken.
Good scene.
Yeah,
I mean, that was a really good scene.
Yeah. So we're in South Carolina. And obviously we're in South Carolina and we have Publix all over the place here and we can get those subs and I'm not really sure that's a good thing.
No.
There's a Publix like 2 miles from my house.
Oh,
so
yeah, mine
they're just
too.
a little too accessible to me. So they're really good. But I have to tell you, I did get Munster cheese instead of provolone.
Oh.
Okay.
And it's really good.
That sounds good. That works.
Okay, so I'm sorry to digress, but that wasn't about the book.
No, that wasn't a digression.
That's
right.
That's a big part of the book. And to me, that was, I've definitely gotten a lot of people who were Florida people are like, okay, yeah, she's definitely a Florida girl. Like she knows what she's talking about.
Well, I think that's going to spread into South Carolina now because everyone who's reading this book is going to need to try this probably. But anyway, quite good. Okay, so we've talked about setting, we've talked about the characters. The other question, and there were just a lot of good comments. People said, I love the characters. This was a great book. It was different from other ghost stories. Mm-hmm. But one thing that several people asked is, will this be a series? Is there going to be a book 2? And if so, when can we expect book 2?
Book 2 is actually coming out this September. I believe it's September 9th. I've announced it on my socials, and I think it's probably up on Goodreads and that sort of thing, but we don't have a cover or anything like that yet. That we're still early in the process. But the book 2 is called Ghost Business, and it is about Sophie, and it is about a new character who comes to town. It is competing ghost tours. So it's enemies to lovers, competing ghost tours, and there's going to be a hurricane, and I'm pretty sure they're going to get stuck together during the hurricane because that's a great romance trope. So that's what's on deck next.
So we are coming. Yeah.
So we're going forward. So it's going to be in the same town, but with a different couple.
Correct. Yeah. That's That's pretty much how it look for like I said, I have the Renaissance Fair series. It's what's called interconnected standalones, where it's, like you have your book one couple, and then book two, that book one couple is there, but they're like supporting characters now, and then somebody who's a supporting character in the earlier book now gets their book. So that's kind of the plan, I think, for Boneyard Key as well.
Right. Okay. And so this will be Sophie, and is it going to be Theo from this?
It's not Theo. Sophie and Theo are just friends. I've been asked quite a few times if they were going to get together. I have some plans for Theo. I'm hoping that and that's all going to depend on if what else Berkeley wants to buy from me. If they want to buy some more books from me, I'm ready to write some more about. And definitely I've got some plans for Theo. But this is Sophie and a new character. His name is Tristan, and he is a kind of a former theater kid turned reluctant businessman, and he runs a kind of corporate-y kind of ghost tour, and where Sophie strives for accuracy, and she's telling the true story of the town. He's very much, he has ghost tours in all these different cities, and it's basically the same stories everywhere. There's a pirate somewhere. There's a guy with a hook for a hand. There's all of those like classic ghost stories that are kind of bull. So those two ideas clashing against each other.
Okay.
So I've had a lot of fun writing it. It's been a fun one to write. So I'm hoping people like it.
Fun. Yeah, it sounds really good.
So I know we have one more question that we both thought of. I'm gonna let Susan ask it, but this is something that that was on both of our minds, and I'm sure probably some of our other group members as well.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I've never been privy to an exorcism, and Susan has not either. But our notion, at least, of an exorcism, is with a priest and holy water and maybe a cross. And this one was different. It has a water gun. And so we want to know where did this exorcism come from? Have you ever been privy to one?
I have not been privy to an exorcism. So Nan does things a little differently. And Nan is our ghost hunter, and she's an octogenarian. That water gun had holy water in it, so she's just using it in a much more effective way to just, as opposed to needing to do whatever with the holy water. So she's got a better delivery system with the water gun. And I just kind of riffed on like kind of the TV show Supernatural back in the day, how they would do rings of like salt and stuff like that. And I took kind of the idea of the salt and the sand, because this town itself is sort of mystical and magical. So I would figure the sand would have some sort of properties, to aid in that. So yeah, that was, I made all that up, but it was a lot of fun anyway. I don't care. But that's kind of the fun thing about getting to do a book like this, that's not just like a strict like contemporary, where it's got some magic and some mysticism in it, where you can kind of do a little bit of a really fun world building as far as the magic and the ghosts and how they manifest. One of the first things my agent said when I sent her pages was, "So can a ghost text?" And I was like, "Well, here they can."
Yeah,
like we're not going to go into the how. It's just
ghosts can do whatever
they want. And that's sort of a fun thing to do when you're writing a book like this, where as long as you kind of you can make your own rules, but then you sort of have to stick to them and make them feel real and feel grounded. But you can kind of you can have some fun with it, and you can do some stuff that's a little off the cuff and different. But I always had the idea of this Nan, this ghost hunter, this woman who's in her 80s, and the grandma. I've had her in my head for years. I've been trying to figure out a story for her and Libby, her granddaughter. It was originally going to be a book, this was like probably 15 years ago, about her inheriting her grandmother's ghost hunting business and doing something with it. And it was a story that I'd messed around with a lot and never really got off the ground. And then when I started to write Boneyard Key, I was like, oh, let me take those characters and put them in here, and I can do something with them. And so I've always had this idea of Nan with her, super soaker, and her, of holy water, and and iron is a very, like anti-spirit and anti-ghost, thing. So the idea of using like a fireplace poker instead of like a dagger, so Nan's very practical. She's using what she's got. So
so maybe Libby, that could be the third book then. You could write about Libby.
Yeah, I have some thoughts for Libby as well. So yeah.
We've just got to figure out how she can inherit her grandmother's gift or how she's going to get it.
I've got some plans. We'll see what happens.
Okay.
And that's the fun part too about these kinds of books is when you populate them with a bunch of really fun supporting characters, and then you can kind of think about, well, what's their story going to be? And
Right.
it's a lot of fun.
Okay.
Right.
Well, congratulations on your finalists for the Southern Book Prize. That was actually.
Thank you.
I was just reading through the list one day, and I saw your book there, and I thought that sounds fun, and that's how you ended up on our list because it just
Okay.
ran across.
Absolutely flabbergasted for that to happen. I'm like, these are some other like the other finalists. I'm like, these are some really good books, and then y'all have a romance novel up in there, and I was like, that's amazing. I'm so excited about that.
Good for you.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
All right. Well, I think we've covered everything. I don't think there are any other questions. Is there anything else that you would like to tell us that we haven't covered?
I don't think so, because I definitely, I'm very passionate about Florida. Like I said, I lived there for about 25 years, and it's just such an interesting state. Like you have your Florida man jokes, and you have people who come to Florida because they want to go to Disney or they want to go to Universal or they want to go like to Cape Canaveral or something like that. But there are so many amazing, just out of the way places, or a little more out of the way places that you can visit in Florida that are so just not what you think of when you think of Florida. You've got like, Cedar Key has it's like rocky beaches, and it's an oyster and clamming community. You have to get some Tony's clam chowder if you're out there. Places like Cassadaga, places like Blue Spring State Park, where the manatees go in the wintertime, and they're just floating all together to stay warm in the winter. And it's like looking at a bunch of gray lava lamps. It's just, Florida's just such a neat state. And that was one of the things I really loved about writing this book, was kind of sharing the things that I really love about it. Okay. And one of the things that made me the most grateful is just that the readers that have picked up on that. I've gotten a lot of messages from Florida readers who were very excited that I kind of celebrated the state as opposed to making fun of it, if that makes sense.
Yes, yes. Well, it's a beautiful depiction of setting and atmosphere, for sure.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that, because that's something that I work very hard on. Because I really want people to feel like they've gone somewhere,
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you.
Time to chat with us today, and we will be looking forward to the next book in September.
Yep, sounds good.
Thank you, Jen.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.
Nice to meet you, Jen. Thanks so much.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.